Hello and welcome. Today is the first day of October 2017. It is a Sunday. My name is Derek and welcome. Let's take a look at some cryptocurrencies. 5 of them, I think. Bitcoin will be the first one. We'll take a look at this quickly. Now on the weekly chart, which I like how it's breaking out from this 18 average. At least that's what its attempt move seems to be for such. Maybe it's just going to resist the band. I haven't seen a situation like that where the band stays in a very good uptrend and price action really doesn't leave it, where it always stays below the 18 average of highs for several periods in a row in a nice uptrend. That hasn't happened really. This was a correctionary phase, and well, it didn't do it for that long in here. All right then, so we're going to take a look at this Bitcoin chart. Komodo's moving well too, and I just quickly seen Aeon, ZClassic, and Numeraire and MR that are short-term movers right now, so I'll take a look at those ones as well. Everything you do is within your own risk and own reward. I'm looking at charts as well as I'm seeing them. Let's look at this whole bubble situation. Do we see much signs of a Bitcoin bubble within this? If your reasoning is because it's up too much, well, at what point is this up too much? And it's a relative term. So defining what high or low happens to be, when you got the scientific numeric data that is accurate, well, that's easy. If not, you can tell after the fact. We are not looking like it's after the fact. The buyers definitely still in control within this market as I am seeing this. So let's take a look at this on some other time frames. Let's move this over to the daily. And I have limited amount of candles, but it really tells what the story happens to read more clearly. And within this move, it's been just this really one single leg lower in here. That's all it is. The first one would have been profit taking from another all-time high, having this leg higher or lower, that is, and then a little bit again, and that's just normal market reaction with like every single code that trades. Okay, so it's done well in correcting its first move, because oftentimes if something's bearish, what do you see in here? Well, what I usually see is how it comes up to the band like this, makes a lower high, maybe comes down, probably breaks below the 18 average of lows. It's going to make a half-assed rally. This counts as half-assed compared to this. And then she's over. Well, here's the red candle. I mean, if it goes below, it didn't go below. But that's why when I say you knows key support, I don't want to be short in here or think of any type of setups until it breaks this point in here. So it's not doing what the bear market's doing. Instead, it follows with this green candle, thus flattening out the band. This day in here on extreme microscopic volatility was a very good one. It held those gains, followed through, breaking above the 18 average. Now the band went from flat to newly rising. 2 days like this, a little more volatile, but yeah, not really. And it's another positive one. Yesterday, not as big of a green candle, but it still made a high not seen since these highs in here. And today's session so far, it's down to the lows of the day so far, but the lows of the day aren't that low. And I can see on here, just looking at these time frames in here, the 5 days, that this resistance right now is where it's at. Oftentimes resistance goes to support. So it's something I'm going to want to look at on a shorter term time frame, which I'll get to in a little bit. But before I exit out of the daily, with the new rising average, you've had one small pierce above. You've barely had a break above this point. So it's tough to say what this current move is going to be in that of continuation leg higher, which you would expect higher prices at least into here. Or, of course, if we're going to have our first real decent correction from this area, and the 18 average should, and that will be what I will define for the grading of how well its correction is. Therefore, let's shorten it out to only look at this, because we can also see furthermore as well this 4,000 area in here, which was support, resisted here, supported in here. That's already showing the good bullish strength. So I'm very optimistic moving this thing forward on the short term. Let's take a look at it. And we'll use the 60-minute time frame. And oftentimes markets come back to where they come from, and sometimes they don't. And maybe it will in time, but this was an area in here, which when this selling occurred, didn't go quite low, didn't go that much lower. Also during this correctionary phase, it didn't even come close to coming down below the span for what would be, okay, some lower high in there, and then this would follow to a lower low in here. Then that didn't happen. We still could come down to 39.40. Keyword could. And you would think, okay, what's the chances it does go to 39.40 by the end of the year? Well, probable, actually, because mathematically over a 2-month period, when you have to go this far, probably should happen. Same thing about going over 4,600 by the end of the year. Highly likely on both. Anyway, throwing that part aside. There was a little bit of 18 average decent decline in here, where it corrected with declining movement, which has basically been the case in here. And then a decent leg lower. That's not a decent leg lower in here. And then, of course, it rebounded. So the last thing I stated, it was a decent, it's not a decent leg lower in here. So this is what this tells me now on the short-term time frame. Either or. Either this is setting up for a leg lower, at least one. I don't know how many more it would follow, where we see it broke by this key support level. It's now resisting it in here with the newly rising 18 average. It's resisting it along with the 18 average of lows and starting to pull lower. That's why I see an action at about 42.05, 42.10 will probably signify that we're going to see action even closer to 41.50-ish at least, and just a decent size from point A to what point B would be. Or maybe further congestion or trading within this range. So 41.60, 41.70 would be an area if I see something like that. And that's just the first leg, and it might be the only one if that's the case. If over the next 3 to 4 or 5 hours into say 3, 4 o'clock Eastern time, if this action is holding well within the 18 average and there's not much further decline, even if there is, if it's holding well within here, this will show early signs of the possible failed move down below. That if this thing even does get going up to the 4,300, 43.10-ish area, we have already notified within the daily time frame that it looks like this thing could have a decent rise still to follow, that there'd be a lot of realistic shot that further gain would follow over the next multiple hours or days when you see the action in here because of such. Okay, let's move on to Komodo next, code KMD. Taking a look at such on the daily time frame, and let's go over what's of interesting note, because it had a nice rise in the end of the spring, Northern Hemisphere, up to the 100,000 mark. And then, like a lot of the cryptos did, some serious fall, going from over 100K to under 30,000. That's well over 3 times loss, almost 4. And within such, on the 18 average in here, after it had this leg lower, it had a serious one in here, but it never really did take these lows out. I mean, it did, but not really. This was a trading support level that was, well, a big level, obviously, and it never did get taken out. But in the start of September, on a decent volume, this thing had a beautiful rally, making a lower high to this point, but a beautiful rally still. and it has since been correcting on lower volume. That's something you look for within these situations. You see the rise come out, break like an 18 average like this on big volume, and then you have your price correcting going down and or sideways on diminishing and lower volume. So diminishing is this, lower volume is this, but the volume is still good compared to its predecessors, which is the case again. So I'm liking the transition based on that, just that in itself. Now, as far as what we see now, this is its first attempt today in getting above this 18 average since it's had its fall with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so consecutive down days. And in this case, it wasn't a 3x fall, but going from south of 90,000 to south of 40,000, that was still well less than more than 50% of a decline on that spot. This is the volatility that these cryptos come into play. So now a statement is made today, the attempt to revert the trend. Generally speaking, what I'm looking for is prices even to go a little bit higher, but significantly lower than here. Much significant, like 62, 61.8 would be the perfect number, as if there really is one, but just something in the area. And then have it meet up with this 18 average either by going down in price or maybe waiting a little while, usually a combination of both. And then just have this thing go. But when these things go, they just go. You notice in here, this is a spot which the rally occurred after the predecessor of something, maybe knowing something in advance, buying big, just getting what they could, and paying a little bit of higher prices, but hey, doing fine right now. And then you have this little bit of a quick sell-off attempt below here, following through the next day with another red candle. Oh, it's looking bearish. It's looking bearish. Boom, up it goes. That's when these things go, they go. And that's why I say this now. Oh, yeah, let's wait for a pullback here. Yeah, that could happen. But if you see these things arising at any point, including the rally that's just been going on, you never know if it's just going to keep going and going and going, because this level of resistance could most certainly be taken out. And even this number in here, it really didn't test it in this point, but if this thing is going to be bullish in these, there's a good reason why this code is good. And I just look at the charts and the numbers of price action, then it could easily break that high as well when you have substantially large moves. Let's shorten this out. And we'll look at this on the 15-minute time frame. So when you see markets moving in here, I mean, there's really nothing you can do too much as far as trading. But when things start to open up a bit, starting here, major move in here, then now you got potential where you could have some wild moves within the day. So this one has that so far, and it has been playing into such. As a break of 2 levels of resistance, has had some decent gains. So 53-ish, a little under really when you're breaking this number. But yeah, clear break is over 53. Makes a move to over 58. So in the short term, you're looking at close to 10%. And that's only from the breakout, not from even these areas in here. And the moves can be really quick. We have a breakout in here, so you have one period. This one, which had a huge correctionary move back. And if you think about this for a second, if you're alert to what's going on early in this session, and you see price action breaking on that little north of this 53 resistance field, this obvious point in here, that's so easy to tell where resistance is, and you've had your break above it, it's at 53.6, 54, man, I wish I could get back in. Well, if you're quick enough to put your buy order into where it came from, which would be like right in here somewhere, you would have got it. But that's only at that point if you were quick enough to get it. And a lot of the reason is because the thin orders are thin. People aren't paying attention as much. And then when you scoop up these orders, that leaves very thin new buy orders. So it doesn't take too much after you have your first push up here to bring it back in down towards this level, because the only people that bought on the way down at least down to here, were people that placed their buy orders within the last half hour only. Because that's the only thing that could have happened mathematically, only way it could have happened. And that's why you get those moves sometimes done really quickly, because the amount of Bitcoins to buy, not every situation though, is usually low to get there. And then of course you have this big move, and this thing is going to move itself into play. If the news is going to play, this thing could easily go wild. And technical analysis and stuff, when you look at this, okay, correctionary phase within the 18 from a lot of this move, a lot of up and down, back and forth. The 18 average is still rising. You realize you see it in at 56 change. This thing is probably going to be heading over 60 relatively soon. That's the type of thinking I have. Let's take a look at these three codes now. It's been 15 minutes and change, so I don't know how much of new movers they are anymore, but we'll take a look at them. Aeon is next. This is the 15-minute time frame as well, as this is priced in the US dollar. I'm looking at let's put this into Bitcoin. And it looks the same, but at least the numbers are where I need them to be. All right then, so it's been going up very well for over the last many hours. This is again the 15-minute time frame. It's made a price correction to the 18 average of highs, which has been several periods of just grinding its way higher while never even touching it until now. That is impressive where it came from. Well, we're looking at 71 down to about 65. As the key, or even 72 or so, 71 change. Looking at this on a daily time frame. Well, the sellers are obviously in control, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive up days in a row. And within such, the last ones are happening on larger volume. I would most certainly not even consider being a buyer right now unless there was something fundamentally I knew that could overthrow the reason, because it is up way too much at this stage. With that being stated, when buyers are willing to buy at these prices, which they obviously have been, then the price can only do one thing, and that's continue to appreciate. And if it's going to break this resistance, and it has, how much larger is it going to take it out by? Is it going to come back to this area where it came from? Maybe even some of these areas. We've seen a lot of wild moves where markets go way up and way down, and even in this point here, where you go from 55,000 down to like around 10,000, a little over. Yeah, how about losing 5 times your value? That's just how we play the game. Even on the short term, you go from 28 down to about 15. How about a short term 50% decline? That's how we play the game. So 50% down from 85 is only into here. So to think that having moves to come in here where I'll say later on, oh, this thing got up to about 100,000 or maybe over 100,000 Satoshi, and then it lost like blah, blah, blah down. That's why I don't want to be a buyer when it's up so much. But it's something you want to look at. Where do you want to put your buy orders? What type of setups do you want to look for? Do you want to wait for this to go to the 18 average of lows? Just different things of that nature. What's next on the list? ZClassic, ZCL. Let's take a look at that one. And within its daily time frame, it's having another attempt to revert this trend. There was one quick one in here, and that one failed quickly. This was a half-assed attempt that really never got started. This one was a really good attempt, and it really didn't fail too much, but it hasn't succeeded, at least as of yet. The rally today is on lower volume considering how big these ones were, but still okay sized. It's gotten back up to this point. Nothing yet for me to determine okay, this thing is ready to go. There's a lot of neutrality signs. It's moving to the upper end of neutrality within. But that also gives you indications that short term there could be situations to be playing on. Let's take a look at what might be in place or in play. And this is the 15-minute time frame. And well, I guess I was told it was a mover. It is a mover. When these things go, they just go. Doing a whole bunch of nothing in here. Between 46 and like 46.5, 46.6. Not much of a... And really nothing was going on here. Then when these things go, they go. And that's what it's doing. It's going right now. It's really overextended, but it could go up even more, especially if you see some greater volume come in. Because as I noted before, that on the daily chart, the volume was really nothing impressive on a breakout attempt compared to other ones. So there's definitely possible room for such. I would rather wait myself to at least try to get a position in the 18 average if I was looking to get in. But yeah, this thing is moving. So I guess this is the weaker. Numeraire was the weakest of the bunch. So we'll see what that is doing, if it's been picking up. Let's bring that chart up right now. And on the 15, I guess I got alerted on this breakout in here. Okay. I see as a trader that you want to be fast enough to get your buy order in. So let's take a look at the order book for this one. And the intent, of course, is to be buying this at around 323 if we can, to 325. And what I'm looking at here is the order book at the exchange Bittrex, which just says being traded at. So we can see it goes from 330, 330, 320. So someone's put a Bitcoin in at 330, and I don't want to pay that price. And we have a 2.51, so you basically be looking to be putting a buy order around 316, a little over this number here, which is what I will do right now. And we'll now take a look at this on a more longer term time frame to see if it's worth removing it now, because I really don't know much about this chart, but on a day trading play, I buy it here. I can look to be selling it up towards here. Not bad play at all. Let's take a look at this more long term. And let me just quickly get an image of this. And there we have it. So this is something that just keeps going lower, lower, lower. If it doesn't wear you out or scare you out, it'll wear you out kind of ordeal. It's also a situation when I see a pattern like this where there was a move of this nature where somebody sold it off pretty harshly like this. And then it came back to its grinding lower trading range. That this is the spot where I'm looking to buy when it's cheap, not where I am now. But with the play I was talking about, I'm going to leave it in for that of a day trade. And yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to delete the order if it hasn't bought yet. Oh man, this is a bad chart. And now that's done. So anyway, thank you for tuning in to this morning, this afternoon, and depending on wherever else or whenever you might be watching it, maybe this evening or at the nighttime period. Have yourself a great day. Take care.